Good evening, class. You're welcome to yet another weekend of the Electoral College. Um, you're welcome to today's class. We're going to give 1 minute grace. Please call on your classmates. Everybody should join in so that we can start immediately. We're going to start at exactly 5:01. Our facilitator is already in class, so we will not keep him waiting. At exactly 5:01, I'm going to start the class. Thank you. As you come in, just remember to put in your name and your party in the attendance in the chat box. That would be your attendance. And adhere to all class rules. Put off your microphone unless you raised your hand to ask a question. Thank you. By my time, it's actually already 5:01, and I'm going straight to the class. Confirm you can hear me loud and clear.
Silas, we can hear you loud and clear. Very clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me read the bio of our facilitator before I let him start the class. Mr. Ibiang Levinus is currently a public health and biosafety expert and a professional in politics, with over 19 years working in the social sector to strengthen institutional reforms that can lead to social change. He had led several students and youth movements and have been involved in human rights advocacy. He was the former FCT interim chairman of Alliance for New Nigeria Party, AN. And it was under his leadership that the party built the structures at the local government and ward levels before his ascension to the office of the national vice chairman of the party for the South-South zone after the national convention in 2018. In this capacity, he served in several committees, prominent amongst which is the Security Committee, which he chaired, the Partnership Committee with other parties for the general election in 2019. He was also a member of the National Campaign Council of the party and served as the South-South Zonal Director and Chairman of the national campaign. Mr. Ibiang is a graduate of the University of Calabar and holds several certifications in his chosen field. He holds, in addition, a Master's in Business Administration from the Ahmadu Bello University and currently a PhD candidate in International Public Health. Mr. Ibiang, you're welcome to class.
Thank you very much, Silas. The introduction is not complete if I don't add this part. So sometime in 2018, preceding primaries in 2018, Mr. Levinus was the FCT chairman for the Alliance for New Nigeria. And they didn't put out a candidate. Mr. Levinus was strongly behind my campaign. I was in Kowa Party at the time. And Kowa Party with 38 other parties joined a partnership called COP with the PDP. And it was not done at National Executive Council level. I was the National Public Secretary at the time, and I was a member of the National Executive Council. That's the highest ruling council of the political party, as you will learn today. And Mr. Ibiang Levinus, of course, we're having conversations, and I left COA because the decision was not taken at NEC. I told them to rescind in 24 hours or I'll leave. And I left, and I was welcomed into Alliance for New Nigeria, and the rest is history. I had a remarkable run as my FCT chairman and also became my deputy national chairman. Mr. Ibiang Levinus has supported the Electoral College. He's done a lot of things. I don't even know why he supports me. I just think he thinks I'm crazy enough to do the most crazy things in democracy. So it's a pleasure to welcome who I call my chairman, Mr. Ibiang Levinus. Thank you, sir.
My ED, I'm just here blushing like a young lady who has just been approached. This background information. Thank you so much. I'm really very grateful. And thank you, Silas, for that blurb you read about me. Thank you. I'm indeed very honored. I call you Senator Kunle because we run elections as a senator. Some who are enough us who were behind the process. I think that we are more comfortable because one of the things we have observed is in why they're actually in offices. And yet those who actually have good reason to run for office do not find themselves in office because that is what it is, that narrative that you have come up to change. It led you to establishing what we electoral college. And I want to, for this dream that has come, to also commend you, the member college, Silas, Chalia, my very dearest friend, Lisa. Me, I see her emails and messages. Every day I wake up and I'll just smile. So thank you. And just to put this on record, that whatever we do for the love of country, and then is the fact that we are seeing the work is doing, the investments in time put into the work that the electoral college in the lives of people in terms of the awareness and the political education that they get. Kudos to all of you and more grease to your elbows. And just to say, in terms of time and resources, we will support the electoral college in this direction. So once again, executive director, and I remain very loyal. The electoral college is an institution. So I remain loyal and committed to submit myself to your leadership. All right. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, to the electoral college, and I must say that being here is indeed a touch, and that whatever you learn from here, it is just the beginning of a bigger lectures are usually the investment of the bigger and to have, but the 80% of it that you have a duty here. What we're doing here to ginger you, to encourage what you have started in the right direction of our dream. History from that, go back in time to look at as a people. If you look at the slide, next, political parties are very fundamental, and we can never say party. As you can see within the political parties everywhere, and they are the governments emerge through.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. It seems your line is breaking.
If you can hear me.
Yes, we hear you, and then it skips, and then we don't.
Oh my God. Okay, so is it better now?
It's still breaking, sir.
Okay, so just give me a second. Let me.
All right, thank you, sir.
I'll possibly use my phone. from my device.
Okay, thank you very much. Before he comes back, welcome to class. My name is Silas Agaldo. Remember to log in your name in the chat box. That would stand for your attendance, your name and your political party. Thank you.
Okay, host, if you can, kindly locate a second device.
Okay, Charlie, I check for a second device and make him co-host.
Have the host function too. So I think you can just make your second device a co-host, yes.
Okay, confirm you can hear me.
Yes, this is much clearer. Thank you, sir.
All right. So I want to welcome you. And I was just saying that to build a Nigeria of our dream, we must look back at history to understand where we are coming from so that we get a perspective of where we're able to walk towards where we want to be in terms of recreating the Nigeria of our dream. This, of course, is the underlying and electoral college, because if we become politically aware, then it makes it a lot easier to begin to walk in that direction. And looking back in history, it's important to know that political parties have been a fundamental process. This is largely because you cannot have a Secondly, democracy, of course, as we all know, is a form of government, and we have communism, socialism, theocracy, oligarchy. We have, but democracy, of course, is one of those. And it's important to the platforms through which power, of course, is contested. System of government, and that happens through an electoral process. And examples, especially as it relates to Nigeria, as you know, and winners only emerge parties, because the political parties, of course, are the vehicles through which they emerged. So the history of political parties are back as the time colonized Nigeria, and a young man by name Herbert Mark, son of Bishop Ajayi Crowther, formed the very first political Democratic Party in 1922. And several others that have came the establishment of the Nigerian by some sort of, platform to participate in the governance of their country, a colony of. And it's also important to know that two major cities where the British government involved in, and those were the colonies of Lagos and Calabar. It's a process of political party formation, which was initiated in 1938, and then, of course, the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroon, which was, of course, under the leadership of. Then came the Action Group in 1948, which was established in 1951. So these are some of the development processes, of course, as it dates back to 1923. And then these parties constituted ethno-regional associations with the Action Group, of course, which was based in the West, and was an offshoot of what you call the Yoruba or more Dudua. So please, those who are Yoruba, so now we had the Northern People's Congress, which of course evolved from the Northern Cultural Association, Arewa, and then the National Congress of the, which started as a national party, but later narrowed its base to the Union of the Southeast. So you could see that these were clearly some political parties in Nigeria seem to express a certain geopolitical bloc. It shouldn't be like you have the APC, and in fact, even the PDP was also various political parties way back in 19. And then, of course, the APC, which was coming together with factions. Then the ANPP, ACN, and the CPP, which was, together to form the behemoth we now know is the ruling party. So this is how politics might have the intention to establish political movements. Don't be deterred by the fact that people may say, oh it's from there, and then it grows gradually as you build your structures across regions. And these ethno-regional elite blocks, of course, struggle for power, and through a contest of see which of them will emerge as the ruling party. In the earlier days, so it is today, between political parties. As you know, political parties contest elections, and our constitution, of course, recognizes that, political parties must be why people vote for, political parties. It is not the individuals that we vote for. It is the parties. Okay. sometimes lead us to which party we eventually vote for. For instance, our favorite candidates are, scattered based on where you are leaning. You vote for that. Now, some power sharing arrangement among during the 1959 elections to win the majority. Understand this, no single party won. So what happened? They then decided to combine, to form the national government at the time. This brought Abubakar Tafawa Balewa Nnamdi Azikiwe as the Governor General. And after the elections, so Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe in 1963, after Nigeria became a republic, maintained his position as the Prime Minister. Before to 1965 elections, and to understand that there were massive electoral fraud. So it's not something that started today. It has always been there. Always been electoral fraud. However, I think the big thing that we are all working is fraudulent aspects of elections in order to make the process credible, free involved in that process. And it is this fraud, political crisis, that led to the collapse. So there were dissatisfaction in the system, ANC and the Northern People's Congress. So both parted ways. Satisfaction and disagreements between the two. Don't forget that it was an alliance because none of them will get the majority. Now, following all of this, there were some realignments amongst the political parties, and these realignments were, of course, occasioned by the disagreements that followed or trailed the 1964-1965 with a faction of the action group led by Obafemi Awolowo to form what you call the United Progressive Grand. The Northern People's Congress, on the other hand, joined with the remaining faction of the action group led by Samuel Adoke Akintola. I'm sure they are familiar to all of us, okay, to form the Nigerian National Democratic Party, NND, and the entry of the military into Nigerian politics. Nigerian political space witnessed significant change in the of political parties. So you can see that that's told our democratic experiment. So the country was to truly experiment, failures and successes in all true because of the military incursions and the blackout because of the Civil War to 1970. Fast forward to the Second Republic. There were certain political. In the run-up to the Second Republic, there were about 150. 50 of them were fully constituted. Only 18 were able to meeting the imposed conditions, submit their applications for registration. Of course, we've always had who registers political party, just like we have today, which is the But the states, the Nigerian state recognized only 5 of them in 1970. Nigeria NPN, the Unity Party of Nigeria UPN, Nigeria People Party PRP, and Great Nigerian People's Party GNPP. States recognized, but there were many. The 1979 Constitution banned elections and outlawed regional, ethnic, religious, and extremist. Gives you an indication as to why 5 of them. Don't forget, I mentioned earlier, this at the time were male expressions of, and so on. So this is for which the government of Nigeria, these 5 that they considered most qualified to actually during the elections. Process in 1978, and that is the National Party of Nigeria of the First Republic. Of course, that's understandable. The founding family works a coalition from segmented and disparate factions that constitute. I said the states, the Nigerian state recognized only 5 political parties. What they will be doing, of course, they will be, and of course the MPN is those idiosyncrasies out there, disparate, factions and groups within a hegemonic party did not really bear fruit. So in 1979, which of course revealed that the political parties retain strong regional basis, the votes without any of them completely dominating the other. So what it means is that what we saw in the First Republic, the Second Republic, clearly showing that these parties, despite the fact that they were considered semblance of geopolitical expressions. That's basically what this is. Votes. So the votes clearly showed those expressions. It is politics was strong with political parties like offshoot of NEPO, Northern Element Progressive Union, and of the Action Group. These were the very strong, ideas. Both parties were said to be on the left, while the other 3 parties on the right. And that Second Republic also had a fair. There were allegations of massive corruption. There were dissatisfaction within the systems. A lot of people felt, we did at the time. And it was this perception of corruption, maladministration that led to the took place in 1983. And of course, this the government of Alhaji Shehu Shagari, who won elections in 1979, term of 4 years before the Buhari regime had another blackout, which lasted from 1983 to coup. So we had another military coup that overthrew the military Muhammadu Buhari, and this time around, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, the head of state of Nigeria in 1985 via a coup. So the Second Republic. And so Babangida down to 1993. And there's something it's instructive to understand that while Babangida was in office, he changed the nomenclature of from just head of state to military president. So he went, and as military president, he gave Nigeria. So Nigeria had a national assembly, but it was a military. How the republic was then vetted in 1990, and there were a flurry of activities that first was the Third Republican Constitution, which was drafted in 1989, which were later banned by Ibrahim Babangida himself. Two dominant political parties, the Social Democratic Party slightly to the left, and of course the National Republican Convention, which was considered a slightly state-backed political parties. When elections were held in a lot of us must have read this history, that Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, MKO, as he was then known, from SDP as the winner of the press. To many, it was inconclusive because that by General Ibrahim Babangida. And this republic, which barely took off. So there's crisis within the political space. And then we have blackout, and this was the fourth blackout. What happened? That election, there was dissatisfaction across the Nigeria. This dissatisfaction, the pandemonium, I mean, quite a lot was happening, led to office, okay? And because the Nigerian constitution, what Babangida did was to hurriedly put together what they call an interim national government, something very. That interim national government was headed by Chief Ernest Shenuko, one of our elder of Chief Ernest Shenuko is the highest ranking military officer, and that was General Sani Abacha, who was the Secretary of Defense. Because of the political crisis, Shenuko was only in office for a very short period of time. I think there were lots of legal, issues, cases against that government institution of Nigeria. As a result, coup overthrew Shenuko of Nigeria, and he governed Nigeria to 1998, when he died. And following his death, Salami Abubakar became and midwife one republic. So it was initiated through the constitution we now know. For its first elections, the independent regulator of political activity, and these were the People's Democratic Party, which later became the All Nigeria AID, That was the political plan. Current president, Asiwaju, on as, and he was considered then as the last. He was, very big, around the southwest, the states in the southwest, which were, so following a Supreme Court judgment on the case, conditions for registration of political parties were liberalized. Those are more political parties to come into the Nigerian space. Don't forget the AD, the APP, and the PDP are not given or considered to be part of the, and they won. That liberalized the political space, and we had other at the time. So prominent among the new political parties were for political change, CPC, and there were so many others. There are just so many other political parties that came on board at the time. Took advantage of the court ruling by the Supreme Court, which liberalized the political space to register their political party. Most of them were basically political parties run from as brief parties that were run by individuals. You have father, mother, son as a political party. I'm not talking about having, a man and his family. And that's basically how some of the political parties. Now, in order to promote credible elections within the existence of political parties, Section 78(6) of the 2010 Electoral to deregister political parties that failed to in elections, and only 10 parties won seats in the. So the question is, what were the others doing? Let me just give you some bit of very funny story. The time in Nigeria where INEC was giving grant to political parties to have political parties almost everywhere. And like I said, most of the political parties were in that they were largely run by individuals who needed to collect money from government. So what happened? Sorry, it's getting. I'm trying to adjust my position so that you can hear me very well. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, just thank you. It's
breaking.
Heavily, the winds are so strong, so I was trying to get less interfered with. All right. So this political party is provided by INEC, and so until at it with the process of granting political parties. Political parties, like I said, as a result of the liberalization of the political space in 2011, and INEC also more political parties that couldn't win seats. As a strategy for those of you who are looking at political parties, let me tell you something very interesting. And the reason up to date, look, politics is for negotiations. And I'll tell you, a lot of negotiations, there are people who back political parties and negotiate for certain seats, whether at the local government level, at the council, like that and so on. Because if you don't win a seat, you face the risk of being deregistered. Allow political parties to be able to negotiate for certain positions like that and so on. And that gives them the presence that they have, are able to still retain or sustain their presence. So at the end of 2012, an additional 7 registered political parties. And if you go back in history, you find having given us this background, we've been talking about. The Nigerian substantial numbers of critical stakeholders. They are politicians, they are political parties. We have electoral systems. We have those we call the anti-corruption crusade, the executive traditional institutions. We have organizations, situation rooms. We have some make up the critical stakeholders within the Nigerian political landscape. So interestingly, each of these stakeholders plays, each of them plays significant roles in our political processes. And what they do is that they also serve to deepen and form the political structure via served to the Nigerian people. Critical component of the stake. From all that we have stated so far, dating back in history, you could see that political parties are very important. So what are these political parties? A political party is basically an similar political aims and opinions that seeks to influence public policy by getting its candidate into office. So please, if there is a disruption, so that we don't miss out on any aspect of this presentation, because everyone hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. It's just that it keeps having a glitch. It keeps coming on and going off. But we can hear you audibly when it comes on.
Okay.
I think the general network in your area is just not that great now.
With the strong winds here. My apologies.
Yes.
I will try as much as it's on the...
Yes, just go ahead, sir.
Yeah. All right. So political parties are every of our political, substructures of the society. And situated in every aspect of society for reasons of sustainable and functioning democracy between governmental institutions to the elements of, civil society in a free and fair society. of any modern democratic political system. So indeed, we cannot talk about without mentioning political parties because they are more or less What do political parties do? And articulate public policy priorities. And that becomes the basis. You could see that when political parties electioneering process, they tend to, and the manifesto is a single public policy priorities to commit to the Nigerian populace that they are going to, that's their manifesto. And the other thing they do is to of political and electoral system. Many of us may disagree with this, and ideal. So between the idea, a world of difference, a very big world of these are expected to socialize and educate their food. But in terms of educating voters, less of what they do, okay? We don't see much of electoral college was established as without political education and of political parties, but do less of this and do more of this and so on and so forth. Posing demands and, every political party, for instance, the criticisms of the opposition, criticisms of other stakeholders, and articulate them in. Okay, so they do that. Our political law or state level. So when is pushing forward a different, a policy alternative, good elements of those alternative policies and put them in their own. That's the whole essence. That's what makes governance, deepens governance. Because if you neglect the opposition, that from looking at what you are doing and proposing to you, conduct or implement a program, provide those balance, participate in political decisions by citizens, and then they recruit and train candidates for tested by so many. Because at the end of the day, you now be there is a legislator, there is a local government chairman, that president. Does this person really have some provided through their political parties on what many who are elected, they don't. They don't. And I do not say this referring to the president because he's been in the, political process from the very beginning. So not have experience of what governance is all about. He does have that. Because of his experience participating. Look across, you find a lot of political office who why they're in office. Imperatives that political parties must perform these task that we've mentioned, the task of getting training for public office holders and so on, political parties and citizens guaranteed or ruled guaranteed by rule, by constitution or law. And this includes, if you say in every political inclusion, people must participate. Inclusion provisions of the constitution for it, that provide for freedom of organization, speech and assembly, provision of a fair parties and candidates. These are rights that are guaranteed for inclusion, which political parties must observe. That's why I call them operational imperatives. And then electoral process, level playing field, and freedom from discrimination. Or a woman or a youth. This is the reason why not to, because the youth wanted inclusion. They saw that the political system was generations, and the youths were completely left out. So the Not Too Young to Run campaign started, and of course we had passed by the National Assembly, allowing for youth's participation in political process. And then media access and fair reporting them. Of course, the media must be given its place on the electoral processes. And then there must be transparency and accountability of parties haven't done well. Political parties hardly give account of resources they generate from members or resources they generate from sale of funds for those who want to generated for its campaign. Political parties haven't done well, and INEC haven't been able to hold political parties to account. Neither do the citizens of Nigeria have held political parties to account. It was only recently we saw the Labour Party candidate give a detailed account. The political party had done that. We saw that. I mean, everyone saw this, and had also given indication that the political party itself, the resources it generated, and public will know how much the Labour Party was able to mobilize for its election that we should be pursuing, because we should know that these are imperatives. We should know, and also demand for accountability and transparency. So political parties are very essential institutions of democracy. They compete in elections, and in opposition, they can hold government to account. We've talked about that. And when citizens join political parties, volunteer their time, donate money, and vote for their leaders, so it is their right to belong to a political party. And it is their right to hold party leadership and for their stewardship in office. Very important. And that's the reason we are having all of this. So if you do not understand that these things are possible within a political party, then we will not be building strong democratic institutions that can outlive us. And that's why we are going through this process. So, however, in some countries, it's important to know that political parties do not respect and are not accountable to voters. Of course, I've said this. Nigeria is one of them. It's not just in other African countries. Even Nigeria, you find a lot of intimidation within the party. You've seen clearly that political parties are not even accountable. They don't declare their sources of funds. And now more demobilized for every process or activity that they are involved in. So this is a huge challenge, and we need to change that narrative. Now, with all of what we've said, the financing and all of that, it brings us to a very important aspect of political party system, and that is party management. It means that, like any organization, every organization must have a management system. And the political party as an organization must have a management system in its structure and function by the following. Now, for effective management, you have what you call the party constitution and manifesto, and there is a reason for that. Provides the modus operandi for that political party. The manifesto is the program that the political party intends to implement. So it guides what the party develop as its programs and its budget. So the party's programs and budgets must align to the manifesto. The party must be seen to be delivering on the manifesto, because the manifesto is the charter. It is the charter between the party and their citizens. So it must be committed to implementing the charter. Then there must be codes of conduct for members. How should members of a political party behave? Very important. There are conventions, and these conventions include previous agreements, resolutions, regulations, party standing rules, and extant guidelines. And some of these conventions I can tell you. Whereas the constitution of this country must be in such a way that there is representation, the political parties then came together to now have agreements, resolutions that guides them to say, look, for us to achieve, let us make rotation of power, a reality. How zones? Let us make sure that there is representation across the geopolitical zones. These visions of the constitutions are actually implemented. So, and these basically come by the conventions that we have. Then we have customs, culture, procedure, all contributes to how political parties are managed. For instance, you will agree with me that the custom and traditions of will determine to a large extent how the party operates. It is the same. It has its ground norm, it has its convention, it has its code of conduct, but in certain areas of the country, traditions and customs of the people, there is a way the party adjusts its modus operandi. So we may not be a problem with political party reaching out to women, but somewhere in the north, it may be a different ballgame. I'm just giving an entirely because of the traditions and customs of the people. So this is how it works. And we must take all of this into consideration. That means we must be culturally sensitive within our environment. Judicial pronouncements, which of course change political dynamics. Remember, in 2011, when INEC registered some political parties, leadership of the PRP went to court to challenge that. And I knew that late Ganifa was also in court challenging all of this. Falana, at least so many legal luminaries have challenged decisions of. So there are judicial pronouncements, which of course give parties some guide in, and then the constitution of the country that we've talked about. So the frameworks that guide party management. Having said that, I'm going to go into the structures of political parties, and I'm going to be a bit structures of political parties. what are the structures of the very reason why we're here, because we're talking about political parties and their structure. What helps the political party to gain the kind of in terms of presence at different levels and strata of the society. Party, which are as follows. Every political party has what you call the Ward Executive Committee, which is, at the ward level. You have the Ward Congress, the Local Government Executive Committee, Local Government Area Congresses, Executive Committee, Senatorial Congress. And let me also say here, give us a caveat that some political parties may have all of this as I listed here. Some may not have all of this as, indicated there. But just to give us a sense that parties have structures, and these structures are based off on, societal structures that we have. We have communities, we have wards, we have local government, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the political party structures are created based on the strata, the substructures we have within our society. And so we see State Executive Committee, Zonal Working Committee, Zonal Executive, Zonal Congress, National Working Committee, National Executive Committee, the Board of Trustees, National Caucus, National Convention. So these are the various structures. So for those who've been wondering, what exactly is structures of a political party? Now you have seen what constitutes the structures of a political party. Please, could you move the slide to where you have the structures so that folks can actually see the structures? Alice, could you move the slide to where you have the party structures?
Okay,
Next
sir,
slide.
I think the admin are on it.
Okay, great. I've just talked about the structures of the political parties. Now, next slide. Now that we know the structures of political parties, what then are their functions? So let's take a look at the Ward Executive Committee, for instance. The ward administration of the party at the ward level, it raises funds, conducts membership drive, draws up for the party, and implement the decisions of the Ward Congress and other organs of the party. They perform such other functions as may be in the interest of the political party, may from time to time be assigned to it by the higher organs of the party, which may be the local government, the state, or the national, as the case may be. So those are the... But then we also have the Congress. I want to provide some deeper clarity on the Congress. The Ward Executive Committee is like the executive structure of the party. Like the legislative part of the party. So it's important. At the ward, you have the Executive Committee, and then you have the Congress. What is the composition of the Ward Congress? Elected political office holders and registered members of, say, for some political parties. For some, it may meet more than that. Their function is to receive reports of officers of the executive officers. So it is the ward that receives reviews it and provide feedback. The Congress than the executive. Congress receives the auditor's reports, deliberates, and passes resolution on action. The World Congress approved the budget of the world, so you can approve the budget, not the World Executive. The World Executive Committee is the executive arm, the functions, because there are more people within the Congress. And then it elects the conduct primaries for world elections, other functions as maybe in the interest of the party. So those are Congress. And it's executive committee. It has its function, drawing up programs for both campaigns, raising funds, administering the party at the local government level is higher than the world level, and then it is government area, Congress, and other organs of the party. Social and economic issues of concern receive and implement reports from the wards on membership, fundraising, and electoral success and mobilization of voters. And it also employs secretarial staff of the party. So you can see that their functions are truly and indeed executive in nature. But you then have the local government area Congress, which is like the legislative arm of the party at the local government level. And for you to truly appreciate why it has such powers, you need to look at the composition of the local government area Congress. Who are they? Who are those that make up the Congress at the local government area? One, you have the local government party chairman and other members of the local government area executive committee. Of all the national, zonal, and state executive members of the party from that local government, and you hold a state executive office or national executive office, local government area Congress. That's how it works. 3, the elected local government councillors who are members of the party. Those who are not members of the party cannot be members of the legislative area Congress of that local government. That's the way it is. All members of the national and state houses of and who are members of the party. So, for instance, we're talking about the local governments, APC local government. Okay, if you look at AMAC, which is Abuja Municipal Area Council, the APC, the legislative, the Congress will only consist of elected representatives in the House of who are members of the party. If they are not members of the party, they cannot be members of the government Congress. That's just the point I'm trying to make. Then all chairmen from the local government. Local government is made up of chairmen and secretaries under that local government are also members of the local government area Congress. And then 3 delegates from area elected at the World Congress, at least one of whom shall be a woman. This is for purpose of inclusion, okay, and recognizing gender parity in politics. All of whom shall, be to function at the conclusion of the Congress for which they were elected. So, for instance, when you're going to have the state party congress for election of both gubernatorial candidates and all of that, these delegates have to be part of that process. And after that process is concluded, they cease to exist. So they're elected solely. People we've talked about make up the Congress. So you can see the local government area Congress is bigger than the local government area executive committee. And that is why it has those legislative functions, which include the election of members of the local government executive committee of the party, elect the local government council chairman, chief candidate of the party, elect local government party delegates to the national convention for the election of both national officers and the president, the budget of the party at the local government level, and also receive the local government auditors report. So the and it goes on like that down to the state. At the state level, you have the state working committee, you have the state executive committee, and then you have so the state party congress is the legislative arm of the party. I'm using this so that it makes it easier for us to appreciate why these different structures exist. There are other structures of the party. For instance, I'm sure you state caucus, you could also have the national caucus, and so on and so forth. In some instances, you also have the state elders committee. You have state party congress, I've talked about that. The state assembly congress. You have House of Representative Congress. You have Senatorial District Congress. And I put asterisks there because but in some, it may not exist. So we need to also understand that for different political parties, they have their own conventions and they have to bring this so that we can all appreciate why they exist. So the State Party Congress, these are budget, elect officers of the State Executive Committee, and then elect governorship candidate of the party, receive report, and receive the State Party Auditor's report. So it goes on and on until you have the National Working Committee, which is chairman, deputy national chairman, national vice chairman. We who are usually 6 because of the 6 geopolitical. The assistant, treasurer, financial secretary, organizing, down to youth leader. They all make up the National Working Committee, and largely because they are all elected. But you also have the National Executive Committee, which is like policy structure of the party, and it is the bigger than the National Working Committee because it includes all of these officers who are National Working Committee members, and it also includes chairmen of all the state chapters of the party, and it also includes elected members of the party who hold political office like president, vice, senate president, and so on, and then the party executive. So they make up the neck, and that's why it's a much bigger, structure and the highest policy structure of the party. So there are functions ascribed to the National Working Committee. Basically, they run the day-to-day affairs of the party on behalf of the NEC, and they perform other functions as may be assigned to it by the NEC. I recall that the APC on Senator Abdullahi Adamu as chairman prior to the elections had to pass a resolution assigning or transferring or delegating its powers to the National Working Committee, the party. And the reason is simple. You cannot summon executive committee meetings at all times, but it is easier to summon National Working Committee meeting because they are responsible for the day-to-day affairs of the party. So they have to pass a resolution at the National Executive Working Committee to, coordinate the affairs of the committee and take critical decisions that are usually meant for the NEC were then taken by the working committee. So that makes the National Working Committee extremely powerful and can initiate a lot of decisions. And then I talked about the caucus. And you have the composition of the caucus. Next slides, please. Move like 2 slides ahead. I think we've gone past here. So the National Caucus is made up of the chairman of the Board of Trustees, who is also the chairman, the national chairman of the party. You have the Senate President and Deputy Senate President, the President and the Vice President of the Federal Republic. That is if they are members of the party. You have the Deputy Leader, Chief Whip, Deputy Chief Whip of the party, the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, the leaders of the... They are all members of the National Caucus. Now, it's important to understand that all of these platforms provide an opportunity for resolution of various issues that may arise from a political party. And that's why, we have that. So that's the National Caucus. Their function is basically to harmonize relationship between and coordinate the activities and those of the parties. So executive and the legislature, as we always know, there is always some and the legislature. It is at the caucus. That's where those issues are resolved. So any association, you know that's where you take sensitive matters to, very sensitive. All of those issues of when you hear it's a family matter, we talk about that. So when you hear a political party say this is a family matter, we discuss at the caucus level. So the caucus is caucus also considers and reviews and advises on of government. So you also have the national you may have also heard of legislative caucus. Now the legislative caucus exists within the National Assembly or the State Assembly, as the case may be. So at that level, you have legislative caucus, and their major function is especially in the area of the party within the National Assembly, who emerged as either majority chief whip, deputy chief whip, deputy minority leader, like that. And so all those are the decisions of the Legislative Council. So it is the legislative instance. The APC has a legislative council in the Senate and in the... It is that APC Legislative Council that decides who becomes the majority leader of the House. So the PDP is the minority leader, okay? So the PDP as a party will decide who will be the minority leader, depend on who has the majority of seats in the same happens in the House of Rep and so on. So all those positions that you see, they are decided by the Legislative Caucus. That's how it's done. Now, we also have the NEC. We talked about the NEC, and I said the NEC is the highest policy-making body of the party. Now, How is the NEC composed? I've told you that the NEC is made up of the National Working Committee members who are elected, and then you also have the chairman and secretary of the board of trustee of that party. You have the trustee who are also members of NEC but do not have voting rights. You have the national vice chairman of the party representing the geopolitical zones. And then you have state governors. So you can see state governors are part of NEC. That's why the NEC is a very powerful organ of the party. And then you have the president, vice president, senate president, all the key executive positions of the legislative council are also part of the NEC. And importantly, you have all the state chairmen of the party, including past national chairmen and secretaries of the party, and board of trustees are also members of the NEC. So the NEC is a very huge platform. And to summon meetings of the NEC is not something you can do every so often, you know. And when they meet, they take very important decisions. So this is how powerful the NEC is. The NEC convenes the National Convention, the convention organizing committee of the party. The decisions and instructions of the organ of the party, supreme. The convention is similar to the it is similar to of the party. So at the national convention, so it is the highest of. It is at the national convention you can amend the party's constitution. It is national officers. It is at the national convention you can elect the presidential flag bearer of the party. So rules, you can make them. That's the party that the organ that has the party. So I've talked about the board of trustees. I don't want to go through the board of trustees also have its function and ensures the highest standard of party activities. It harmonizes on administration programs. It coordinates the sourcing of trustee. Very, very important function. Very, very important. Party funding with the assets of the party and serve as its custodian. So they hold in trust the assets and properties of the political party. That is vested within the board of trustees. And it undertakes other functions and activities as may be referred to it. Resolution of crisis and so on. Negotiations, critical negotiations can be done by the board of trustees as well. Now, the National Convention, which I said is the highest organ of the party, it's a very important organ, and its composition is basically the national chairman, who shall be the chairman of the convention, and then other members of the executive committee. If you remember the composition of the executive committee that we talked about, they are all part of the National Convention. Then the president and vice president of the country, if they are members of the party, governors and their deputies, if they are members of the party, National Assembly members who are members of the party, all GUBA candidates are also members of the National Convention because they are important. You don't know, they may become the governor, so that's why they are also members of the party. So, and they are automatic delegates to the convention. That means they have the right to vote during conventions. And remember, I said that at the National Convention, that is where the national officers of the party, that is the National Working Committee members, are elected, and also the presidential flag bearer of the party is also elected at that level. Gubernatorial candidates or gubernatorial flag bearers are elected at the state level, at what you call the state party congress. That's where they're elected. That's same state working committee members. That's how that happens. But for the presidency, it is at the national convention. That we've mentioned here. National delegate from each local government area to be elected at the local. That before, when we're looking at the local government area congress at that level to participate at the national convention. Chairmen who are members of the party, former members of the national working members of the national convention, and then the president of the Senate, former speakers, former Senate president, deputy speakers, both former and some officers of the assembly who are still members of the party are also. It's a very big organ of the party, very, very big. And here of the national convention, very important. So let me read out some very important. The national convention elects or removes the national officers of the party. No other structure can remove a national officer. It's only the national convention. I'm sure some will discuss that later. So the national convention elects the presidential, very important function. The national convention shall be the supreme and controlling authority of the party within the limits prescribed in the constitution of the party, and it shall be the principal administrative body of the party. I'm reading the functions of the national convention. It formulates, raises adequate funds for management and sustenance of the party, and at all elections, secure the return of as many party candidates of the land. That means it is the national convention that empowers the party to make sure that their candidates at all levels win elections. So these are very significant of the national convention of any party. So it exercises control and disciplinary actions against all officers. It determines the type and membership of standing committees to be set up by the National Executive Committee. It reviews and amends the constitution of the party. Appoint external editors. It determines the minimum rate of annual subscription and the proportion of income from such subscription to be remitted. It is the decision of the National Convention to make such financial. So it's a very important structure of the party. This is typically what makes of political parties. We've been able to x-ray them. We've been able to look at their functions. And the very concluding part of this lecture, structures of political parties. You know, partners of political parties. We have mergers, political parties. Okay, and then we have coalitions like CUPP, the coalition of parties. These coalitions, CUPP, continue to remain relevant till date. And, form in 18. The CUPP was established largely an idea of a political, just like we saw in the first and second. The idea is to bring political parties joining. And the AD talked about the party where he served as party also became a member of the CUPP. And of course, you will agree with me, where such happens, there will be compromise. Interest of the party as an entity will be mortgaged. And when that happens, it will, because every political party is defined by its ideology. And so when you come under such an arrangement, the tendency is that you mortgage of the party. And at the end of the day, it doesn't serve the members of the party. And that's what usually results in, people leaving platforms. So, gentlemen and ladies, you can think of basics of political party structure that will serve you. So thank you. We'll hand over to Silas.
Yes, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. It's now time for question and answers. If you have any question or need more clarification, you can just indicate by raise of hands, and I'll ask you to unmute. Then we will listen. We already have a hand up. Mr. Sorry, I've asked Mr. Abdullahi Usman to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, good evening all. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. My questions, I want to go straight to my question. Based on what you educate us on, I observed that the political parties have a strong role that they play in political system. Now, my question is, how do we resolve the issues of when someone is elected under a particular political party, and with time, maybe he will decamp to another party? There are arguments that when he leaves a particular position, he is supposed to leave that position because he was elected under the party and he now changed another party. So what is the right thing to do? Is there a legal implication in that when someone leaves a particular party, when he was elected, under a particular party and he leaves to another, is there any legal implications about that? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have another question. I will address them all together. I'm noting them down.
Okay, sir. I've asked Ibrahim Jari to unmute and ask your question. Ibrahim Jari, you can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much. Good evening, sir. How are you? Mine is
I'm fine, thank you.
About the historical development of political parties in Nigeria. Don't you think we cannot call pre-independent political parties as parties? Instead, why one calls them association? Because Nigeria, where the amalgamation of Nigeria was done in 1914, and it was done by these British colonial officers. Right from then up to 1946, during the Richard Constitution, Nigerians wouldn't come to know each other, that is, people from the north and people from the south, up to that time, simply because these people won't be administering the country just like the way the way they like it. I mean, through exploitation and all sort kind of things. Don't you think this regionally based political parties was planned by colonial masters simply because they want have the easy administration? Then, because if the people come to unite themselves, they will be getting a lot of challenges. And then do you think the regionally politically based political parties were planned and hatched by this these colonial masters simply because they don't like us to intermingle with each other for avoidance of challenges, sir? or any other. I mean, what will you say about this?
Thank you very much for. Okay, let me just take this two and then very quickly, and then we can take another.
Okay, sir.
Okay, starting with the first, the issue of defection from one political party to another after elections. And again, this is largely because we have not seen where sponsored them into political office actually lose their seats. We haven't seen that scale of defections we've continually experienced within our political systems. For instance, the idea of defection and losing your seats, it's something that is very common within the legislatures. On the platform of a party A in the legislature, and you defect from that party to another, you automatically should lose your seat. But it's, generally speaking, there are it's your microphone. I don't know who that is.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so
go ahead, sir.
We've had these defections happening because we've not really had a situation where people forfeit their seats for reasons of defecting to others. And the reason is simply that from a legal angle, there are certain provisions that, has to be met before that could happen. Now, the question is, haven't we had situations where those provisions have been clearly displayed? If you take, for instance, in River States, very recently, this is the very recent one, we had majority of the members of the House of Assembly declaring that they have defected to the ruling party. Remember, they were elected on the platform of PDP. Now, they announced their defection to APC. And the condition for defecting is that the party is in crisis and there is a sharp division within the party. Unless that happens, you cannot defect. So if you look within the PDP, at the time that these House of Assembly members announced their defection, there was no division within the party. But the question is, why are they still sitting? Because they are still sitting. Why are their seats not vacant? What provisions of the law have not been met for their seats to be declared vacant? But again, I'm sure you must have also heard that the matter is in court. So at the end of the day, this is what we get. Matter is in court. It never gets to be resolved. And at the end of the day, their tenure is over. And this continues. This is the impunity that occasions or warrants the gale of defection we continue to have. Because beyond these members of the State House of Assembly in River State, at the national level, we've had this since 1999 to date. And there has not been any time we've had, people losing their seats. So it's a big challenge. Between you and I, the Constitution is very clear. If you defect, you lose your seat. It's there. You are sponsored by a political party. So if you defect from that party, you leave the seat because the votes cast is for the political party. Now, for the second question, the question is simply that, could it be that the whole idea of the regional political parties that we had from the time of the colonial rule to the time of Nigeria became self-governing, maybe deliberate orchestration to serve their interests? Frankly, I'm sure you are a political scientist. If you bring this up in your forum, people will say, oh, this is a conspiracy theories. Okay. And it's not in my place to pass a verdict to say, yeah, this is actually the situation. The only thing I can say is the colonial masters actually created a system that enhances their governance of their colonial rule over Nigeria, as it were. They did a lot of things. They left clauses in the constitution, both from, if you look across the constitutional development, Littleton, Matheson, or Richardson constitution, and so on, there are clauses within those constitutions. Now, that is beyond the purview of this lecture for us to x-ray. Maybe something that we might consider in another module that the Electoral College might have. But there are clauses in all of these constitutions that makes it easy for them to administer Nigeria as an amalgamated country. There were. And if you are coming from that angle, of course, you may be right to actually say the whole idea of the regional expressed political parties that we have at that in the First Republic were deliberate orchestration of the colonial masters. You may not be wrong if you look at it from that angle. But like I said, within political schools of thought, there will be arguments for and against. Some may call it, a conspiracy theory to actually assume that those regional expressions were basically a creation. But if you look at it again from a very lay perspective, the question will be, if you have Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa in the north, how is it possible to just establish a political party that is national? So he has to begin from the north where he is. And that's actually what, enhanced the regional expressions that we have at the time. He started from where he was and then expanded across the north. And it's the same thing if you look at political party formation today. Okay, you say you are based in Kaduna, so you want to start in Kaduna. You get the party entrenched in Kaduna. You move to, which is the next closest state, maybe Zamfara or Sokoto. You want to make sure that you are established within that place and so on. So that's basically how it happens. If you look at CPC, the party that Muhammadu Buhari was leading, which of course became part of the APC, it was largely in the north. Yes, it has other chapters, but it was largely in the north. The ACN was largely in the west, in the southwest. But yes, it had other structures. So we've continued to have the same arrangement we had in the First and Second Republic in this Fourth Republic that we are in today. We still have the same. If you look at the structure of the party, first, some of them, we have ABGA, we have NNPP. I'm sure you can tell where they are more stronger. And we have several other political parties as well. So that's almost the same kind. So would we say that ABGA, as it is today, is a creation of the colonial master because the colonial masters are no more here? It is we Nigerians. So how comes it is more of a regional or seen as a regional party?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think I have one more hand up. I'll ask Adam Stofik. I'll ask you to unmute and ask your question.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful lecture. But so far from the beginning of this course, it has been educating. And I must also say, after reading and listening to your citation, it's a privilege, in fact, a rare privilege being in this, being on this call today. So my question is actually about the grant that is being given to establish political parties. Because during the course of your lecture, I heard you mention that the INEC normally give a grant for the establishment of political parties. So I want to know if such grants still exist till date. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. So those grants were given to support political party operations and activities. It's actually not for their establishment. the establishment of the political party is something that the political parties do. But the grants were given to the party to support them in conducting party activities and all that. Remember, we said one of the critical functions of political parties is political citizens education and all of that. But hardly do we see political parties do all of this. So those grants were provided before, but that has been discontinued. And I mentioned that in the course of my presentation. It's been discontinued because there was gross abuse of those grants. Remember I said there were what we call briefcase political parties, okay, that were established at the time. Parties that were run from, individuals' houses or cars or offices and so on. So, and people were establishing political parties solely for the purpose of assessing those grants that government was providing through INEC. And when they got these monies, they don't go about establishing their structures. They don't go about implementing their programs. They don't go about educating and creating political awareness. So what is the essence of giving grants? So if you put money in something, there should be return on those investments. So we are not seeing all of that happen. And that's why government decided to discontinue that process. So political parties are on their own. If you say you have what it takes to set up a political party, then you can go ahead and set it up, fund it, devise your ways of, your resource mobilization strategies. But then what INEC did is to come up with guidelines for party financing. There is a guideline for party financing. It is there in INEC office. So INEC also has guidelines for party administrations and all of that. Those things are all there. The political parties have them. So, but the bigger issue is, do the political parties actually adhere to those guidelines, whether for party administration or party financing, So those are the things we are not seeing. And clearly for me, like I said earlier, we've not seen political parties giving account of party finances. We've not seen that happen. So it is the regulator, INEC, that is supposed to ensure that there is compliance by the political parties, but all of that isn't happening. So to your question, those grants are no longer available. Silas, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Very insightful. I've been re-educated again today. Always nice listening to your lectures every time, sir. Despite the network, we're grateful for your patience with us, with our facilitator and the students. I'll hand over this to Madam Lisa, the DED, if there's any notices before we call it a day for today.
All right, thank you so much, Silas. Thank you so much, Mr. Livinus. It's always a pleasure having you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the knowledge shared. I'm sure the students have learned so very much this evening. Thank you for always being there, for always supporting us at Electoral College. So on behalf of the college, I want to say a big thank you, sir. Thank you for everything you do for us and for the country. Okay, I'll just allow the students on mute to say thank you before we call it an evening. But before that, let's be reminded that classes will continue next weekend. Today is Sunday, so classes will continue next weekend. Or you have your assignment within the week, so watch out for that. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Livinus. The students can just...
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you, sir. So they will tell you thank you themselves.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bless you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you,
contributing.
For the good presentation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. I will draw the curtain this evening. So good night, everyone, and have a great week ahead.